So with that, we're ready to review the minutes from the January 21, 2026 regular meeting. Does anyone have any comments or amendments? Just wanted to note a couple of things. I think on line 27, the second as approved, I believe that should be as amended. Regular meeting, okay. And also on line 84, I think McLean, there's an extra C in there.
Say that again, at 84?
Line 84 McLean, there's an extra C in there. Okay. So. Okay, so with that, can I get a motion to approve the minutes as amended?
So moved.
Do you have a second? Okay. Motion, Shannon, second by Doug. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Ready, Doug?
Hello.
Dagny, you voted on that one, right? The minutes? Did you vote on the minutes?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, so I
Yeah,
think
the
that's
number's right.
6-0. Okay, so we now move on to regular commission business. First item is zoning regulations, comprehensive review and update. George, I'll turn it over to you.
So this is the first status report you're gonna get from Francisco Gomes from IMEG. He's gonna walk you through kind of the first set of, line by line reviews, identification of kind of big issues, primary issues, things he's seen so far. He's just gonna walk you through their work so far.
Okay, sounds good. Welcome and thank you for coming out this evening.
Yeah, thank you. And it's good to be back here with you. And I think I'd met many of you a few months ago at the interview, and thanks for the opportunity to work here in Simsbury. So I've prepared a presentation that really is intended to get you up to speed with where we're at in the process, but also to seek your guidance for our next steps in this process as well. So I'll go through it one piece at a time. So our agenda is to talk about our findings and the recommendations coming from our work. I think an exciting part might be to take a look at what your new regulations could look like, and for which we've developed a template to go over. We'll take a look at the project schedule so you can see where we're at with respect to the schedule and what we have in front of us. And then I'd like to talk about community engagement. And since I put this presentation together, George has been able to secure a date of March 30th to do a workshop. And I'd like to spend some time this evening talking about what you would like to get out of that workshop. Okay. And then as time permits, I'd like to get you up to speed with our review of plans. We reviewed your POCD, Affordable Housing Plan, Stormwater Management Plan for implications for your zoning regs. And there are many takeaways from that as well. All right, so let's talk about findings and recommendations. One of our first tasks was to do a line-by-line review of the zoning regulations, and that's exactly what it sounds like. Myself, my staff, read through the zoning regulations line by line, every line of it. And we're looking for a number of things. We're looking for compliance with statute, that's probably top of the list. But we're also reviewing for ease of use and clarity of language. Does this make sense? Do we understand it? Could an applicant, developer, a land use attorney for that matter, understand it? Are there errors, omissions, or inconsistencies? Are your definitions complete and thorough? In your case, they're more than thorough because you have definitions for uses that you don't even allow in this community. So that was a substantial amount of work, and it yielded over 900 individual comments. Some of them very minor, just spelling errors, but others substantive. And it's all documented in, we did a summary report of that. So we've got the document itself, the zoning regulations document, in a Word format with, if you've ever used the comment function of Word, there are 900 or so of those in there. And then we provided like an executive summary document that explains all the issues that we found. So here is an example. This is not an exhaustive list, but these are some of the key themes that we
Let me
found.
just real quick, so
Yes.
all of those items are in your Dropbox. They're also posted on the town web, on our webpage on a in a specific zoning update file. So that's also available to the public.
Yeah. Thank you, George. So an overview of what we found. First of all, there's an inconsistency between listed zones in section 2 of the regs and the zones that are provided in the regs. So you have a list of zones that are introduced in section 2 and those don't match with the zones that are actually in the regs. And then there are also additionally inconsistencies between the zones that appear in your regs and what is shown on your zoning map, which the zoning map is an instrument of your regulations. It is not by itself, it does not stand alone. It needs to be substantiated by regulations. And so we found inconsistencies between the both. We found outdated references to external sources that have long been updated, that should be updated. Incorrect cross-references within the document pointing to sections that no longer exist or are now another section number because content's been added or removed. Overuse of the term character. You're probably all familiar with this issue. Public Act 21-9 basically said that you cannot use character alone as a basis for denying an application. You need to have a very specific reason. So while it's okay to use the term character, you should be more explicit in what it is that you mean. So in your case, they're just vague,
Tucker.
just broad uses of the idea of character.
That's right.
Sorry, I could have just moved.
As I mentioned with your definitions, you have an incomplete list of definitions, so you allow a lot of uses that aren't defined. And the challenge with that is that then you really open the door to the applicant to tell you their use meets your criteria, because you say you allow this, you don't provide a clear definition of what it is, and they say, yeah, I'm that. So that's a problem. You have redundant definitions, meaning the same definition appears in more than one place, or even worse, it's the same term that's defined differently in more than one place in the regulations. There are multiple, 98 to be exact, definitions provided for terms that are used nowhere in the regulations other than within the definitions. Okay. Along the subject of uses, you have uses identified in the use table that are, as I mentioned, are undefined, or for which the term is written or expressed differently in the zoning regulations. A slightly different combination of words is used, and you have to presume that it's the same thing. You have purpose statements that are absent, and when I say absent, I potentially don't say lacking. To say lacking would suggest that you did not include purpose statements, your regulations do not have them. I say absent because you have a section heading that says purpose, and then there's no text below it. So the value of a purpose statement for a zone is it's sort of like the constitution for that zone. It's the fallback when you're not sure how to interpret a specific regulation, or you're not sure if an amendment really complies with the intent or the purpose of the zone. And that's the value of a purpose statement, for which you have many that are lacking. You have vague, passive, and indirect language. So as to the greatest extent possible, you want your language to be clear and direct. And in many instances, it is not. Additionally, you have overly complex language, excessively long sentences, and use of obscure terms and some legalese. Legalese does not make something more legitimate or valid. Clear and direct language does. In fact, the federal government has federal plain language guidelines that we follow. that encourages, even within legal writing and contract documents, the use of clear and direct language and the abandonment of legalese and obscure legal terms. Okay. There's more.
It's a lot.
Okay. There is redundant and inconsistent language and regulations. Just things described differently in different places in the regulation. It's clear that they're talking about the same thing. Typos, spelling, and grammatical errors, poor and inconsistent formatting, including text, tables, nomenclature, the numbering system, use of fonts differs without any rational basis. The graphics are relatively poor quality. They're not consistent. There's redundancy in their content, and the text is illegible in many of them. There is, and this is a larger scope issue. This isn't this is not an error, but you have an over-reliance on the special exception approval, which is not unique to Simsbury, where anything but a narrow band of uses requires a special exception. So that should be explored.
Could you expand on that a bit?
Sure.
Giving us maybe some examples?
Oh, I'm happy to. So, yeah.
excited.
So, well, first let's make sure
We both are.
let's make sure we're all on the same page when I talk about these different types of approvals. There's something called an administrative approval, and that's usually associated with a zoning permit. And you come in to the office, George's office, you go to the counter, you meet all the criteria, it gets signed off on and processed as a zoning permit or some certificate of zoning compliance, some other form of staff approval that never comes before you to the commission unless the staff decides they need to refer to you. Okay. Up one step up from that, which is authorized by statute, but you really don't make use of, is what's called a site plan application or site plan approval, where it is not a special permit, does not require a public hearing. You could hold one, but does not require a public hearing. It generally has a lower bar with respect to the amount of information, data, studies, and reports the applicant has to provide, but they do have to provide a survey, site plan that shows where things are on the site. And there are typically additional requirements. So it's not just the plan. Maybe you have to show proof of this and proof of that. And that almost always goes to a commission, whether it's P&Z, zoning commission, sometimes a planning commission. So that's the next step. And a lot of communities that I work in will approve many commercial uses with a site plan application. There's no special
We do.
permit or special exception requirement. You have many of your commercial uses and non-residential uses in residential zones require a special exception approval, which is a fairly high bar. It requires a public hearing. The process takes longer. It comes before the commission, and you lean on that a lot, which it's maybe that's how you want to continue to operate. But what that does is it certainly makes applications and development more expensive for a developer, takes more time, loads up your agenda. So it may be worth, as part of our work, reviewing all those uses that require a special exception and asking ourselves, do we really need a special exception for this? Is there another level of approval that it's okay to us? And can we potentially set some thresholds? So it's not that every form of restaurant we allow by approval other than special exception. It's anything with more than 10,000 square feet or anything more than 50 off-street parking spaces required. So you can set thresholds by which, if you cross a threshold, a certain scale, intensity of use, it goes up to it escalates to a special exception and goes before the commission. Okay. So that's what we want to look for. As I mentioned, you're well within your authority to require all of that. There's no statutory compliance issues there. There's no error to it, but you lean heavily on it, and many suburban communities do. Okay. All right, continuing on, I talked about over-reliance on special exception approval. You also over-rely on the commission's discretion. So there's a lot of references to commission discretion in authorizing something, in modifying a requirement, waiving a requirement, whatever it may be. The issue with that is that you're not given the authority to modify, waive, or vary your regulations. You have to strictly apply your regulations. Now, you can modify your regulations provided you have a very strict criteria to follow, and you can arrive at that modification and judgment on a rational basis per the criteria that's stated in the zoning regulations. Lacking that kind of criteria, using broad discretion without it being vetted through a criteria suggests it has the appearance of preferential treatment, that you're preferential towards one applicant in granting them more flexibility with the regs and waiving some certain requirements, and then preferential against another applicant because you hold them strictly to the regulations. And that's been played out in case law. The most notable case, McKenzie Town, Monroe. McDonald's wanted to set up shop in a commercial district on Main Street in Monroe. The commission waived a buffering requirement saying, given where you're located, it doesn't make sense to have a buffer, even though it was required in the regs for that type of use, because it was the zone was abutting a residential zone, and a neighbor in the residential zone filed suit. And the court said that commissions have to act strictly in their ministerial capacity to interpret the regulations, and they can't vary the regulations on the fly. If they want to do that, you need to do it in your legislative capacity. You need to rewrite the zoning regulations to allow for that condition or to remove that requirement. All right, so we need to rein that in because it's directly in conflict with both statute and case law. There's a lack of detail regarding information to be provided by the applicant for required permits and lack of procedural instructions. So your permits have lots of criteria as to the things that you need to consider in approving a special exception. So that criteria presumably or assumes that the applicant will provide you the information to make your decision. But nowhere do you list what you require of the applicant or provide the applicant with any direction. They have to just intuit as to the information they need to provide you in order to meet your criteria. So that should substantially be improved. Additionally, you have different codes that live somewhat independently and don't do a good job of cross-referencing each other and aren't well integrated. And that includes your Simsbury Center Code and the Hartford Simsbury Form-Based Code zone. All kind of doing their own thing. And that's okay. They can do that. They can exist as their own thing. But we could substantially improve the connection between those by doing a much better job cross-referencing each set of standards. All right, I keep forwarding my computer screen and it's not. All right, and I think this is my last slide. Your sign regulations, and this is not unique to Simsbury, this is essentially every town or city in the state that I have not yet worked with. The sign regs are in conflict with best practices per Supreme Court case law, Gilbert versus Reed, which said that your regs need to be content neutral, which means you shouldn't concern yourself at all with the message of the sign, or even, for that matter, for most part, the purpose of the sign. What you need to concern yourself with is time, place, and manner. Maybe how long a sign is out for, if it's a temporary sign, where a sign is located, in the manner in which it is constructed, the construction of it, the size of it, whether it's lit or not. And you need to be agnostic as to the use of the sign, the information on the sign. Now, you have a very clever carve out in your regulations right now that says, because you reference signs by sign types like realtor sign and contractor sign, which implies content, you have a very interesting provision that was stuck in, presumably to comply with this, that is, it's a Band-Aid that says any of the messaging described in these regs may be replaced with any other form of text or content. Okay, that's a Band-Aid, but really we should construct these from the ground up as content neutral. And it's possible to do that while still continuing to regulate your signage, to allow what you currently allow and to prohibit what you currently prohibit. But we can do it in a way that makes it legally resilient. All right. All right, next, you have an attempted regulation of activities that are regulated by the state, in which the town has little to no authority to enforce. Like you've got quite a bit of content. They're very concerned about the shipping of alcohol in gift baskets. I'm guessing there was a robust enterprise in this community at one point. So a lot of content dedicated to that. Well, guess what? The state regulates that through liquor permit. Right, so if you have a nuisance use that the trucks come in and go and ship alcohol, the state can enforce that. You can handle that through your home occupation regulations, but you don't need to provide all the specifics of what the state is regulating. You can even reference, the state liquor permit requirements and that sort of thing. Use of male gender terms, we need to get rid of that. Conflicts with and due to Public Act 25-1, signed by the governor the day before Thanksgiving, which basically has told us that we can't deny an application if it does not provide the amount of parking that you require for any housing development with 16 or fewer units. There's some caveats to that. You can create a conservation and traffic mitigation district where you can continue to uphold your standards. We want to get your regulations caught up with that public act and explore your options. Included in that is that you now have to allow what's called transit community middle housing, even though you don't have a commuter rail station. It's, in short, it's multifamily housing 2 to 9 units. You have to allow that type of housing or mixed use development, which means residential and commercial in the same building, in all of your commercial zones. That's effective July 1st of this year. Okay, so we have a lot of work to do there to get that straightened out. I think it's possible to both be in compliance with statute and provide some safeguards to ensure that your commercial zones are performing the function they're intended to perform, and that you don't have street level retail that's being displaced by multifamily housing development. Okay, and that every community I'm working with, we're all figuring this out at the same time, and everyone across the state is in a conversation about how to handle this at town, city level, and council government level as well. Next, your floodplain regulations. They should really be updated. They're pretty solid, but they should be updated because in 2018, the state adopted as part of the state building code, the 2015 International Residential Code standards, which changes some basic building code items in flood zones. And Connecticut Deep does provide model floodplain regulations for both coastal and inland communities. And so we want to take a look at their model regs, compare them to your regs, get your regs absolutely up to date. You've got the Farmington River right down there and a big floodplain associated with it. And we want to make sure your regs are up to date. Did I say there was only one more?
In this section.
Yeah, slash. Outdoor dining regs, you're okay here in that you allow outdoor dining, but we should really make sure what you allow is absolutely consistent with Connecticut General Statute 81cc, which was adopted as part of Public Act 21-9. Because everyone needed to be outside to eat safely. And it basically says that any food service establishment is allowed to have outdoor dining with certain provisions, as long as you maintain handicap access around it and that sort of thing. Okay, so we need to make sure your regulations are fully supportive of that. You have references to community residences, which are permitted in any residential zone under the same permit type that you allow single-family residences. That can't be treated any differently. We want to make sure you're absolutely consistent with that. You have a lack of regulations specific to any buffer strip screening or parking lot landscaping standards. So that's an area we want to explore, and this is a big list of things that you don't have that are typically included in a set of robust regulations. Standards for parking lot design, beyond the required size and number of spaces, you lacking any standards for required landscape islands and anything like that. There's no mention of the locational approval that's required for auto sales and service establishments and gas stations. There's a separate approval that has to occur separate from any zoning permit or special exception. It's called a certificate of locational approval, and that authority has moved around quite a bit. The legislature's moved it from ZBA to staff to the commission, and it rests, depending on type of approval, with CEO or commission now. And it should be referenced in your zoning regulations, just to raise a flag to both the commission and the applicant to ensure that that certificate of locational approval is part of the process and is in the applicant actually goes through that process. And so it's very good practice to put that requirement into the zoning regulations. You have a East Weetag Historic District and Historic District Commission. Your regs don't have to contain any historic district design guidelines or regulations, but where appropriate in zones where you do have these districts, it would be good to cross-reference any requirements and procedural requirements for those commissions along with your procedural requirements to make sure that step in the process isn't missed. You should also reference your aquifer protection area regulations. Those are state designated aquifer areas. Simsbury does have aquifer protection area. It's a separate set of regs, and we should provide reference to that because the uses within that aquifer protection area are pretty highly regulated. Furthermore, you're lacking any standards or requirement for earth excavation outside of the HOD zone. There's some references to earth excavation and some controls on it, but there are townwide there are no real controls or regulations specific to earth excavation, which can be incredibly impactful and adversely impactful during its process. And then your special exception application, as I mentioned earlier, and procedure requirements are really lacking. Okay? All right.
Liar. I
Yeah.
forgot about this page, huh?
Real quick.
These are
Normally,
things that we don't have that we could have.
There's like 5 more slides.
no, we have a lot more, but in terms of like what you're missing. Savings clause or severability clause. It's good to have that. It can be one sentence, one paragraph that says, if anything here is found invalid, the rest of it is still valid. Simple. We typically stick it in front. You lack regulation of drive-throughs. You don't have fence or wall standards. You don't have regulations regarding the outdoor display of merchandise. You don't have a list of town-wide prohibited uses. Not all towns do. That's okay. But if there are certain types of uses that you want nowhere in town, anywhere, ever, it's a good place to put, it's a good place to list them, okay?
All right, well, I could think of some, but
So what it does is it not only sends a message to any developers or applicants that don't even come in and try to propose this, because no way, no, never. And also it's a reminder to, because this commission evolves over time, it's a reminder to future commission members that we had a discussion about this and we decided we don't want this anywhere, right? So don't, if you want to decide, if you want to entertain a discussion about allowing it in this zone, you need to first have a discussion about why we prohibit it in the first place. And that's the value of it. You do have the authority, and your regulations are good in that you don't have all this regulation over cell towers that you don't have the authority to regulate anyway. Those are probably pulled out at some point. But you still have the authority over certain types of apparatus and antennas. If they're not placed on a tower, if they're placed up on a church steeple or whatever it may be, you can still regulate that. You can require that it be painted the same color or screened or whatever. So you may want to put some of that back in. You are one of a couple dozen communities in Connecticut that have a trap rock ridgeline in the Talcott Mountain Range. And there's legislation that allows you to restrict development along that ridgeline beyond the authority you would have outside of that ridgeline area. And you're not really leveraging that in any way. You don't have access management regulations or any comprehensive driveway standards or regulations. So presumably the town engineer is just approving all this stuff. But through zoning, you can also through zoning set certain standards for driveway locations, width of driveways, distance between driveways. All of those things are under the purview of zoning. Regulations surrounding cutting or required replacement of trees can also be regulated through zoning to a certain extent. And you don't have any regulation prohibiting clear cutting, having requirements for it, or requiring any form of replacement.
Is that something that's common in other towns?
I would not say it's common. Sometimes very general, vague, soft language is common. Like the trees and forest cover shall be preserved to the greatest extent feasible. Specimen trees shall be replaced on a 1-per-1 basis, something to that effect, and you just don't have anything to that effect.
We've done it application by application.
Right. It would help to have some teeth in your regs to
Absolutely.
support you in doing that.
Absolutely.
Handicap
Just
parking
like
requirements.
landscaping too, just like landscaping.
Yeah,
We have
exactly,
standards,
consistent.
but we essentially get
It's
good
all kind of
landscaping.
negotiated,
Yeah.
By
right?
negotiation.
Yeah.
Be helpful.
That's right.
Handicap parking requirements are primarily driven by building code, but you could also have some basic references to what the state statute requires in building code, and just to plant that seed in there so it communicates the message. We're not just concerned about how many spaces you provide, but we're also concerned about what type of spaces that you provide. Now this is separate. So now we're moving on from your zoning regulations to Simsbury Center Code, of which we find a lot of the same issues that we found with the zoning regulations. And so this is a different part. So when I talked earlier about I meant the zoning regulations part. There are, as I mentioned earlier, incorrect zoning regulations section references, so it's pointing to the wrong place in the zoning regs. Redundant content. So Simsbury Center Code is controlling this, and the zoning regs are also saying kind of the same thing. Some discrepancies with statute and case law as with respect to non-conforming uses and structure, and the state keeps tightening and tightening and tightening the screws on this in terms of reducing your discretion in basically discontinuing a non-conforming use. They're increasingly are giving more right to the non-conforming use than to you to discontinue it. And with that language should be really tight to be consistent with statute. There are minor inconsistencies between the standards in the code, in the zoning regulations. And generally, when I say standards, I mean like measurable things and specific requirements. There are different use terms, so uses are referred to slightly differently. Where it's like, I think that's the same thing, but why did they describe it differently? This part's really interesting. You have listed uses and descriptions of uses that aren't permitted anywhere in the Simsbury Center zone. Like heavy industrial. There's a whole set of regulations on heavy industrial uses. But it's heavy for obvious reasons is not allowed in the Simsbury Center zone. So that content, it was boilerplate content that should have not been included, but just kind of got thrown in because they threw in everything, right? Sign regs we talked about. There is authority and responsibility assigned to the town engineer that is more appropriately assigned to this commission. And likewise, there is authority and responsibilities assigned to the planning director that really should be assigned to the zoning enforcement officer. So we should assign those to the appropriate staff persons. So what do we do with all this? Well, our recommendations are to correct all issues identified in the line by line review. When I mean issues, I mean errors, inconsistencies, vagaries, redundancies, omissions, inconsistencies with statute and case law. All of that needs to be corrected. Additionally, I think we should provide some new content. I went through 2 pages of notable omissions or things that were lacking. Certainly, savings clause or severability clause, and they're really kind of the same thing. There's some distinctions between them, but they're more or less the same thing. Most certainly, special exception application and procedure requirements. Some outdoor dining regs. We need to reference community residences and ensure that they're regulated the same way as single family homes. And when I say community residences, I'm talking about essentially a single family home that's taken over, that's acquired by an agency and is operated to provide a residence to children with special needs, to adults with special needs, to there are a few different types of permits that are regulated through different state agencies, and they all fall under the general description of community residences, which in statute says cannot be regulated in a way that's any different from single family residence. And so we want to make sure that we make it clear. And given the fact that you're not currently requiring a special exception for them is good, because you're not holding them to a different standard.
Several years ago, we amended the ordinance, the regulation,
Yeah.
but I think we amended the definition of single family in order to do that. So
To
there's-
accommodate
to
it,
accommodate
to expand
that,
it.
I think to meet
Yeah.
the state statute. So there's a
Yeah.
better way to do it.
Yeah, we just want to make sure we're exceedingly clear that we're fully in compliance and we get it, we understand it. We should add in the locational approval requirements, provide references as needed to the historic district and their procedures. Reference the aquifer protection area regs, provide basic standards and requirements for earth excavation, and delineate those from sand and gravel operations. And this is a challenge in a lot of the communities I work. There's a set of regulations that's written for these types of operations intended to control noise and erosion and sediment control and that sort of thing. But they very often fail to distinguish between an operation that's for the purpose of building something. You're building a subdivision or a large development and there's excavation, earth moving, and that sort of thing. And an operation where the principal activity is extraction of earth materials for the sake of selling those materials. And that's the principal activity. And it's very important to distinguish those and have regulations that are specific to each, even if there are commonalities between the two. It would be good, you don't need a full set of access management regulations, but it'd be good to have some very basic driveway standards and regulations. Similarly with the cutting, preservation and cutting of trees and required tree replacement, handicap parking. Fence and wall standards, I mean, you have nothing, so presumably someone, as long as building code allows it, with building codes mainly concerned with wind load on fences and their structural integrity. And generally speaking, building code easily allows anything up to 6 or 8 feet tall. You don't have restrictions on fences in front yards, which is common. Most communities require them to be 4 feet or lower in a front yard, and some even require transparency, a certain amount of 50% openness, so you can have a picket or some wrought iron or something, but it can't be a solid stockade fence. So that's really something we should look at. Should have some basic outdoor display of merchandise standards requiring stuff to be brought in at night and that sort of thing, and ensuring that it doesn't displace required parking spaces or it doesn't obstruct pedestrian flow. Your solar energy system regulations could probably be expanded to support that type of use as appropriate as well. And so continuing on with our recommendations, we should also make similar revisions as necessary to the Simsbury Center Code. Being very careful not to change the intent of the code. The code has a very clear vision. It's supporting something that, as I understand it, was well supported, well received and supported by the community. And we don't want to undo any of that, but we want to tighten it. We want to tighten it up and ensure that it is as effective as possible. And we really don't need to change what is allowed to do that. We just need to clean it up. And then I say for the commission to consider, because these are things, I don't think things that you have to do, or you don't need to do them, but you should consider them. And that's reducing reliance on the special exception requirement, providing a list of townwide prohibited uses, providing some standards for telecommunication equipment that is not regulated by the siting council, and considering rock ridgeline protection regs. Okay. All right, that's quite a bit. Before I move on, are there any questions or comments? Yes.
I don't know where this fits, but last year there was a small committee that did that took a look at affordability and affordable housing and made some recommendations to the Board of Selectmen. And I had meant to bring my binder tonight, but I forgot. I'm just wondering if you took a look at any of that, if you have that,
Was that part of your affordable housing plan? Was that all documented in your affordable housing plan?
Kind of,
Yeah.
sort of, but
Some
no,
sort of?
it was a
Okay.
separate document.
Okay,
right,
So yeah,
I haven't looked at that yet.
I haven't gotten it to them, I need to,
Okay.
I
Okay,
saw your email this week, I'll get it to them. Some, some of that you guys did accomplish as a group.
correct,
So we'll have them look at that, just like he'll look at the POCD
perfect.
recommendations, but yeah, let me get that to him.
Okay, great,
Okay.
thank you.
we did review
It's
your. Yeah.
it's manageable, it's not
Okay,
a million
okay.
recommendations, yeah.
We did review your affordable housing plan for zoning implications, and I have several slides to that effect going over your POCDs, affordable housing plan, and your stormwater management plan, all of which provide some broad and in some cases very specific recommendations for your zoning regs.
Thank you.
And any other questions or comments? Okay, well, let's talk about what these regulations could look like, how they could be organized and formatted, and we have some very clear ideas on that. That being said, we're very receptive to your input. We have yet to migrate your existing zoning regulations into a new format. So if you have thoughts on how you would like to see that organized or formatted, I'm all ears. We did, for the sake of our discussion, provide an example of how they could be formatted and organized. So that's an example. We took the first couple of pages of your regs and we put them into a new format. You'll notice the use of color to help break content material up. Sometimes a page full of black and white just can be soul crushing, right? And color can really help, I realize not everyone could see in color, but color can be a very good tool for breaking up content. But color isn't the only tool we use because not everyone sees well in color or color at all. There are other very important formatting techniques we use. We have graphic designers who are very good at this stuff. The use of white space, the balance of space on the page, the use of indenting, use of tables, even the fonts that we choose that are highly legible, both on screen and print form, look great in either form, look the same in a Word document as they do when they're exported to a PDF, which not all fonts do. And so these are 2 pages put into a format that we would recommend. Starting on the left side, the top of the page, we always provide a header. And the header provides important information that's consistent across every page in the document. It lets you know what document you're in. Very often, people print out or pull out a handful of pages they need along with an application and reference it. And then the question is, well, what document did this come out of? What version of the document? Is this an up-to-date version? Beyond what page number? What section of the document is this? And so the header does exactly that. And I realize it's a little faint and hard to see, but at the top, is this a laser? Oh, it's not a laser, I turned it off. There we go, back on. At the top, we have a header with the section number that says what section you're in. In this case would be section 1 and has the name of the section. On top of that, it says Town of Simsbury zoning building zone regulations. Is that there is a laser pointer. Right in the middle.
The big green
The
arrow.
big green thing.
Laser
I was looking for a red. So that's this content up here. it has an amendment date with amendments through, so you know what version. Do I have the most up-to-date version of this thing, right? So we provide a date for this. And the beauty of all this is when we build the document, we build it so that all this updates automatically. When you amend it, we amend the date on the cover and all the rest populates with the right date. Articles, we recommend organizing by articles, and if you don't like the term article, we call them chapters. The idea is you have these basic buckets where you put all the sections that are a lot alike into those buckets, and it helps you break the document down into smaller pieces, right? So it's good to be able to divide it into these different levels. And that generally goes from article to section, and it says section right there in the name, section 1, to subsection, that's 1.1. These blue bars divide each subsection. And then from there, we can go to a third digit subsection, like 1.1.1. And from there, we typically go to an alternating letter number format. Capital A, a numerical digit, and then a lowercase a. We never have to dive any deeper than this. We need to go deeper in that with Roman numeral I, 3, IV, we're doing something wrong, right?
Yep.
We need to better manage the information that we don't need to dig that deep. We also, the way we format it, we keep information from shifting over to the right side of the page. And if you get deep enough in some of these sections with some formatting, you end up with a column of text that's about 2 inches wide on the right. And then that just adds page count and it makes it harder to follow things.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
So how searchable is this document? So you have
Yep,
somebody coming who's never been in Connecticut, we wanna
Yeah.
do a new project in Simsbury.
Yep.
So can we make this super easy for them to type in something and it'll take them right there?
Yes, and to some extent, your existing regs are searchable because it's a PDF document. You can search for terms and words and that sort of thing. And in this, so we first of all, let me back up a little.
Sorry.
We build this document in Microsoft Word, and while we use a lot of other much more elaborate graphic design type software in our work for doing POCDs and master plans and stuff like that, it's those other documents are not common in planning departments, and the expertise in using them is not as common. So we want to build regs in a platform that is accessible to staff that most people have some level of expertise in using. And generally speaking, that's Microsoft Word, so it does everything we need to do. So within the constraints and the abilities of Microsoft Word, we build in as much functionality as we can with respect to navigation, hyperlinks, and searchability. So by example, this bar on the bottom, this footer, represents each article's number section. And if you had the PDF document, you could click on each of these tabs and it would jump you to that article, right? So we introduced some navigation there. Anytime we provide a cross-reference that says see section 10, that section 10 is a hyperlink. You just click on it, it brings you to section 10. So we build that in. In addition to that, this is all set up properly in Word, and meaning everything is set up as an automatically updating format and section number. So if we were to stick in a new section right in, I did it again, right in front of 1.2, we adopted the new savings clause, and we decided we're going to put it right there. That doesn't mean that staff, when they inherit this document, then have to go in and manually turn this into 1.3 and that into 1.4 and so on down the line. We stick it in and everything updates. All the cross-references update, right? It's all automatic, and that, while that saves just a lot of labor, but it also ensures that there's nothing is missed in the process.
So if
Which
you're,
doesn't make it invulnerable to that, but it
If you create a new number 1, the old number 1 becomes a 2.
becomes a 2. The table of contents knows that it updates the table of contents. Any subsection that was a 1.6 point whatever becomes a 2.6. Any cross-reference to section 1.6 becomes a cross-reference to section 2.6. That's all done automatically. It's all built into the way we use what Word is capable of doing, most people never need to get that far into it.
It's not quite AI, but it's,
No, I mean, there's a lot of operability built into it. It's not a perfect platform, but it's very good for our purposes. And more importantly, it's something every department we work in has access to. Most departments use that format for their regs to different levels of proficiency. And usually we're just taking it to the next level. It's also really important in our work to have tables that are consistent in format and legible, so you're not having to try to figure out how each table works. And so we have a very consistent format and organization for those. I already talked about the section numbers, but one of the things we do as we migrate your existing regulations into the new format is we provide, and this is just for internal purposes and for draft purposes only, it doesn't stay in the final adopted regs. We put the former section number in parentheses right by the title of the section, so you know where it came from. Like, where did this thing come from? Oh, it came from section, in this case, 1.3 of our former regs. Let me compare the two. So we do that for each of these. And in the end, we provide a cross-reference guide. Where was it in the prior version of the regs and where is it now? So you can cross-reference. So I talked about a lot of features. That being said, I'd like to, and I realize it's kind of on a fuzzy screen form, but we could certainly make this is just like 2 pages. We can make that available to you in a PDF so you can see it in really clean resolution. But does anyone have any initial impressions as to the organization and formatting?
Looks good to me.
It looks good.
I like it.
It is a formatting that's consistent now in several communities, and it just seems to, like, everyone seems to meet people's needs. It's pretty easy on the eye. It's fairly effective. We're not trying to overreach and turn this into a magazine, right? Which, I've seen a lot of work, and we've worked on some projects where they've got really ambitious with the graphic design to make it kind of fun, and with the attempt of making it more intuitive, and then it becomes something that's really difficult to maintain and update, and not necessarily intuitive to use, even if it looks really kind of exciting and catchy. Okay. All right, so let's look at our schedule. So here we are, middle of February. This, I consider our kickoff with you, at least the commission. We're going to meet with you at least 4 more times through this process to regularly check in on our progress. We have completed the line-by-line review. We've completed a review of plans and documents. We need to ramp up on community engagement. I'll talk about that in a moment. We have since reviewed your uses and definitions and provided a complete list of definitions and an updated use table of all your uses. We need to next move on to your general requirements and provisions. A lot of things that I talked about that really need to be updated. So coming out of this meeting with your support and approval in this process, we're going to start to take your existing regs and migrate them into the new format, article by article. And we'll, for the most part, work from front to back. Okay. So when we come back to you next time, we'll have a certain percentage that migrated into the new format. And then as we do that, we're going to start to flag these areas that we think require community engagement and discussion with you. We need to make bigger decisions about how to handle. And do you really want to change how you do things? So it won't be a matter of just fixing things and getting things into the right format, but really a matter of changing the way you regulate things. Community engagement. As part of our scope, we're scoped to do both a workshop and a presentation, and George has secured March 30th as a date, and that would be right here, George, here in the library for a workshop. Now, what has not been decided yet is exactly the format of that workshop. Typically a workshop we conduct will have a presentation so we can inform everyone attending as to the purpose of our work and what it is we're trying to achieve. And then we usually go to a breakout session where we're gonna have smaller format discussions. So we need to make some decisions on the format. More importantly, and what I hope to get some direction in the time, as time allows us here this evening, I realize you've got an agenda following this. We need some direction from you as a commission on really what you would like to accomplish through that community engagement. You know, what are the important issues you want to address with the community and you're hoping for the community's feedback on? Is it your residential zones and allowing more housing, greater diversity of housing? Is it your commercial zones and being more permissive with certain types of uses, being stronger in regulations in some area, more flexible or lenient in other areas? Do you need stronger environmental controls? You know, what's the direction you're interested in heading, and what kind of discussion do you want to engage the community in? And then we could customize that workshop for that purpose. So what we still need to do, approaching March 30th, and unfortunately we've got a solid 6 weeks ahead of us here, is we need to develop communications materials for that: flyer, social media post, press release, content for the town's webpage that explains the purpose of our work, which is it's very, I think, very clear to everyone here, but also what it is we're looking for the community to provide us feedback on. We need to explain the why we're doing this, what we need from you. Okay. Later in the process, we will conduct another public meeting. It'll be more of a presentation format, and that'll be once we drafted regulations, but well in advance of bringing them to a public hearing for adoption. Before we've committed to putting them on an agenda into a public hearing for adoption, we want to come back to the community and make sure we got it right and hold a public presentation, explain how the zoning regulations were updated, anything that was changed, very intentionally changed about how things are regulated and the reasons for that, receive comments, and if we need to at that point, revise and tailor things as needed to respond to the community's concerns and wishes. And then bring it forward to a public hearing, which would be separate from that public presentation. So the workshop, I talked about this a little, and as I mentioned, that we were initially looking at mid-March. Now we're looking at Monday, March 30th. About 2 hours long. Typically, we'll have an open house function prior. My team will get here earlier so that for the early birds that arrive, we can have just one-on-one discussions with them. And 2 hours presentation, interactive format, small breakout groups. We record on flip charts or maps as needed, and then everyone reports back. And those can be incredibly productive. And then we provide a summary of that at the end. Review of plans. There's just way too much for me to get into detail about this, but I did include it in the presentation so that you had access to all of our findings. And in short, there's been a lot of work completed to date with respect to your zoning regulations and what has been recommended by the POCD and other documents. So that includes the POCD, Affordable Housing Plan, Stormwater Management, and guess what? Affordable Housing Plan requirement has been repealed by the legislature as part of Public Act 25-1. It remains effective, so please, continue to use it as a guide, but you're not going to have to update it. It's being replaced by a housing growth plan, and that will be done by CROG in 2028. So there, as I mentioned, there's a lot that's been implemented already. And I've got lists full of things that have been implemented: adoption of the Housing Opportunity Development Zone, adoption of the R8 zone, ADU stuff, adoption of the RA zone to allow for two-family dwellings, and on and on. So there's a lot of progress that's been made. You're ahead of a lot of communities in terms of being responsive to what your POCD and your affordable housing plan recommend. There are additional recommendations that have not yet been addressed, and I think all this should be on the table for us to consider and potentially to explore in that workshop, because These came out of the POCD planning process, which is a reflection of the community engagement that occurred in support of that process. So presumably, these are things that are still supported by the community, but it's been a few years and they should be revisited. There are environmental protection and sustainability elements of which you've incorporated a lot of these, like outdoor lighting regs, electric vehicle charging requirements, but there are other things that we should consider that have been recommended by the POCD. All right, and notice how Trap Rock Ridge line regulation is mentioned in your POCD. Simsbury Center Code, there are another number of items that are referencing your Simsbury Center Code, and so we should revisit all of that as well. Recommendations regarding sense of place, and this kind of ties into character a little bit too, and also, you know, the needs to ensure the zoning regulations reflect some of the planning work that's been done for Terrafil and Weetag Center. Regulations are specific to Route 10 as well. They have implications for your zoning that we want to explore in more detail. Recommendations that would better support economic development. The affordable housing plan, you've made a lot of progress on that plan's recommendations, and I look forward to seeing the recommendations that have been developed more recently. And the stormwater management plan as well, and these are usually very specific and targeted, and so we'll look for, and this really applies directly to parking lots and impervious surfaces. It does also make some references to site plan requirements and guidelines and that sort of thing that we want to cover and address. Continuing on, excuse me, with the stormwater management plan, there are items that aren't fully addressed in the regs or are not required by the regs that we should review. And that brings me to the conclusion of the presentation. So with all that being said, certainly receptive to any questions or comments you might have.
Follow-up. On the community workshop, how many, are you planning just one session?
One large encompassing session.
Yeah, because one of the concerns I had, and we talked about this at the selection meeting, George, was, I wanted to make sure that elected leadership in town had an opportunity to sit down and talk to.
I think we talked about doing that after the public.
Okay, so-
After that is separately, but
Okay,
that
so
you know,
that's
that
still-
would be maybe a joint meeting with planning and the board of selectmen.
Okay,
We'd be
okay,
kind
so I'll
of
make sure
limited to that.
All right, want to make sure we don't lose sight of that.
Yeah, we
Okay.
have not.
Any other questions or comments before we let our guests
No,
go?
thank you, it's very
So
detailed.
I'll work with Francisco and through you on kind of working through breakout session discussion. I think my sense is that we should have one that broadly deals with, housing opportunity. I think we all should discuss kind of use descriptions for commercial districts. What kind of uses and what level of review should we be doing? I think once we get a look at uses and how we review them, that's where we'll get into whether it should be a special exception or whether it should be by right or whether it fits in. We've got 3 different business districts, and that ought to be a discussion. Then maybe a discussion about kind of site plan, or I don't want to call them beautification standards, but those standards that matter to design. Tree protection, landscaping requirements, buffers. Yeah, those things that we don't require as part of the site planning process, but could. And then we'll come up with, I don't know how many you're thinking. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Yeah, a handful, right? Because people will come to the workshop with different interests. And so we want to provide stations, and what we'll often do is we'll rotate through. So you spend 20 minutes at a station. Okay. We'll rotate 3 times, whatever need be. So you have an opportunity to go to more than one station, participate in different types of discussions.
So we'll put pen to paper, and then I'll kind of bring back on for your March 2nd meeting what we're thinking.
Okay, just one other thing, George, we had the sign session a few weeks back with the community. And I had a follow-up discussion about how we should react to that. Should we do something in the short term, or should we wait and incorporate that into this regulation rewrite?
Francisco and I had all,
Okay,
as
go ahead.
soon as I talked to you, Tony,
Yeah.
Francisco and I had a follow-up conversation about you know, how to expedite particularly the temporary sign discussion, which was very good at our community forum a couple weeks ago. And I think your answer was yes.
Well,
We didn't have, I don't think we have to wait 18 months, but
yeah, what I certainly agreed with is that we should integrate that work that's occurring now into the work that we're doing. And if for the sake of maintaining that momentum, we can potentially, for the sake of maintaining that momentum, we could potentially take the sign regs that we might have gotten to 6 months from now and just bring them forward in the process. You know, I mentioned we're gonna work from front to back. Well, if you have some momentum, let's take advantage of this,
Yeah, we
leverage
should
that
do that.
and build upon that, and let's move that up into the process. We're gonna do it anyway, but let's just make it a priority.
Yeah, I think we'd like that.
And I think that should be one of the topics of March
Okay.
30th,
Yep.
because we have so much community. George is laughing, but we have,
I don't think you could escape it.
okay,
So
just
Okay.
checking.
All right, any other comments or questions? Okay.
I thought your
All right, thank you very
presentation
much,
was really
great
good.
job.
Oh, thank you. Yeah,
Very
thanks
much.
for your time.
Excellent
Thank you.
start.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Okay,
Glad you got the clicker working.
so
Just
we
warmed
will
up for the next one.
I have my own, it just works differently.
move on to the next agenda item. Since Kate is now in attendance, we're going to send Alan to the bench and bring Kate in for the next and it's a public hearing, so Shannon, could you please read the notice?
Okay, application ZC 26-03 of Rosedale Farms Real Estate LLC, owner TJ Donahue, Killian and Donahue LLC. Applicant for a special exception pursuant to section 8.6 and section 12 of the Simsbury zoning regulations to serve and sell wine in the existing wine production facility on site at 25 East Weetag Street, Assessors Map H14, Block 108, Lot 003, Zone R-40.
I have a couple of slides. I know Mr. Donahue and Marshall are here tonight on behalf of the applicant, but I'll just frame the issue. Brittany had written a staff report. We make that part of the record. So our understanding is Rosedale Farms, which has a lot of different kinds of activities as part of the farm, including wine production, would like to expand to provide a 2,000 square foot a large tasting area. I would say large, but a tasting area where the wine would be sold or served and sold. That is the reason for the special exception. It's a change in what's out there today. I understand it's going to be in that structure.
Correct.
And again, we always run through your special exception criteria: orderly development, property values, public safety, traffic considerations, landscaping. Staff tends to look at a request like this. These kinds of auxiliary or ancillary or additional uses of part of farms are what farms are today. So we really see them as part and parcel of the entire operation, the agritourism, the events, those kinds of things are necessary for farms to survive. So the staff is supportive of the application. We think it meets all the criteria. We don't anticipate any negative uses. They're making wine today. They're selling wine bottles today. It just adds a little different inflection to the site. So with that, I yield to the applicant.
I'd like to approach you and give you the affidavit, proving notice. Thanks. And thanks, George, for your summary. I think that's pretty complete, and we're very, first of all, I'm TJ Donahue. I'm very pleased to be here again representing Rosedale Farms, one of Simsbury's signature properties and one of their gateway properties, which is, people know about Rosedale Farms. If they walk the High Blind Tower, they get looked down on it like it's a oil painting. So tonight with me is Marshall Epstein, farmer, his wife, Lynn, and Kyle.
Kyle's the fifth generation.
And so, thank God for youth.
Yeah.
If Francisco had been here a year ago, we wouldn't be here today because George's summary showed exactly that we've identified what the issues are. Staff has made findings as to what they are, and so Marshall is here to answer any questions that you have. The essence of the application is they have a wine manufacturer on the site. It's been a key part of this great business, this farm business, which they work like hell to do well, but it's been very, very successful. And they the desire is to have a more accommodating and better wine tasting room. Today, that function is carried on in the back of the existing farm store area, and it's just gonna move across the driveway to using all the same parking, all the same stuff, and it's going to move across to that building, which has facilities and which will be an excellent place for that. We answer any of your questions. We're very hopeful that you'll be able to grant this request. Marshall, if you grant it, hopes to be open by the fall.
Any questions?
Is that it? You're not doing
Not doing
more?
a 45 minute slideshow, no.
Okay, well, I mean, we got a site plan, if you will.
We gave you a lot of material.
So my question here is, I'm familiar with all this. I've been going there for years. But so how many square feet is the existing versus the addition?
Well, as you know now, it's an outdoor facility. We don't have really an
Oh,
indoor.
I thought you were adding it to that building that's already there.
It is, so now, usually right now, the
inside.
wine
That's where
business
any,
is right behind the farm stand. This is the building right where we make, it's right when you drive in,
Yes,
go
where you-
straight in. So
you-
that's where manufacturing mostly takes place, but now we're gonna take some of the manufacturing out and put in a retail part.
It's gonna be
So it's
inside
not-
that existing
the
building.
inside of-
Oh,
it's
it
gonna be
is.
It's gonna be
oh,
inside
so
the
where
existing
are you
building.
moving the manufacturing to?
We're still doing some of there, and some is being done in Hartford.
Oh, I see. Oh, so you're not building a new
No,
big
it's
addition?
existing
nothing.
structure.
It's the same,
You're just
the
using the
use.
it's the
same.
use of it.
It's just the use thing.
Yeah, Daphne, it'll go in that existing
I've
building.
been in the building,
Yeah.
but I
Then you
didn't,
know.
I wasn't sure if you were
Yeah, no new
putting
building,
a
no
little
new
addition
construction.
to it.
No new construction, no new site, no
So you
no
already
site
sell
plan.
wine.
Yes, we do all these functions, just trying to have a place that's more comfortable for people and really extend some of the season, so.
It's licensed under the Consumer Protection Liquor Control.
Yeah.
It has two licenses, which are four licenses, which are the required licenses. And we've been in communication with the Faring Valley Health District, and they
You saw that.
understand what we're gonna do, and they're gonna work with us to get it finished.
You're only here because it's a new use. Right.
Because it's
Just
a
to be
new
real.
use in a different space.
Got it, because you moved it.
And really, it's kind of like what, it's kind of like what Francesco was saying, it's kind of a thing that we almost shouldn't be here with, but we're happy to be here.
We're not there yet, TJ.
We'll examine
We're
that
not
use
there yet.
plan.
Okay,
Gotten there
cart,
yet.
horse.
Any other commissioners
We
have
start with
questions
us.
for Marshall or TJ?
So, what?
I've just said if there are any other questions from commissioners for the two items.
I feel like the use is very fitting and it's the business that they're already in and they're also keeping it on property.
All right,
And it seems like it meets the requirements of a special exception in terms of property values and safety and everything else, so doesn't seem to raise any red flags in any of those areas.
okay, thanks. Any members of the public want to speak? No? Okay, so can we get a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? No, all in favor of closing the public hearing, please say aye. Aye. Passes 6-0. Okay, thank you. So we'll move on to any further discussion on the application?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And we just wanted to note, you guys worked very hard tonight. I appreciated that presentation. It
Oh,
was
still to vote for.
helpful.
All right, so can someone make a motion?
Draft motion, there's probably a draft motion in the staff report, but there's one there too.
Okay,
Move the application of Rosedale Farms Real Estate LLC, I should say ZC 26-03 of Rosedale Farms Real Estate LLC, owner TJ Donahue, Killian and Donahue LLC, applicant for a special exception pursuant to section 8.6 and section 12 of Simsbury zoning regulations to serve and sell wine in the existing wine production facility on site at 25 East Weetog Street. Zone R40 upon finding the application substantially meets the requirements of section 12 of the zoning regulations and with the following conditions. The project shall be developed in substantial conformance with the application ZC 26-03 dated February 2nd, 2026. Any building and zoning permits shall be obtained prior to the start of the project.
Second.
The motion and the second, any discussion? Okay, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Passes 6-0. Congratulations and thank you and alright. We'll move on to the next application. It's application ZC 25-27.
Yeah, just real quick, I know we've got an applicant and his team is here, but so this is a request that if you were here in 2015, you'd remember it, almost identically. So this is a request at 568 Hot Meadow Street. It's a request for a 2,500 square foot mixed use structure. It's a site plan application. So this is a proposal that has ground floor retail or commercial, second floor 2 apartments. Cross access, it's in the location that we all know at table 570. As I said, it was approved in 2015 by the zoning commission. And because of expiration dates, it expired, site plan expired. This was before COVID and obviously expiration dates are much longer these days. In those days, it was just 5 years. So it expired, the applicant is back with, as I said, identically the same request. So just a couple of items just to orient you. So table 570 from street view, the location is just to the right. And if you're looking at the aerial from overhead, you see table 570 in the middle, and the place where the star would be the location of the small mixed use structure. So I understand DRB did review tonight and approved as recommend as proposed with a couple of recommendations that the applicant should consider, but they weren't part of the motion. They asked him to clarify. Actually, I left the applicant since he was there and I wasn't. Staff has no real objection to this. We think it's exactly what was approved in 2015. I don't think there are really any changing conditions necessarily. So staff certainly doesn't have any objection. I think mixed use is a great thing. I think we ought to be moving towards that where we have the opportunity to. So I'll leave that to the applicant.
I just
Go back to the previous slide so I make sure I knew where the location was.
And how close will it be to the abutting building on the right? How much space
So
between?
I think it received some variances.
Yes.
So that side yard variance is
What kind of side yard does the other building have?
almost 0.
So that's,
So
I mean,
they're close. I mean,
can we assume that the neighbors know about this plan? In other words, the people who own the abutting building
So
are aware of it.
perhaps they are.
So I
I
don't
mean,
think they
they
care.
could.
Well, I mean, fire code getting between the buildings.
No, it'll meet, there's no issues with code.
Sorry, and there.
I'll address those.
Yeah, go ahead. Let me,
I just have one question. Flip to the next slide. Okay, so I looked through these, it's just a very trivial thing, but it says looking west. Isn't that looking south?
That's looking east.
east.
Oh, that one, wait a minute, which,
Well, that's looking
That's
north.
from Hot Meadow Street looking east.
None of the above.
okay.
So that's.
Hot Meadow Street runs generally north
Fine,
south.
because they were labeled little differently. Okay, fine.
Okay. Good evening. For the record, my name is Ed Lally. I'm a licensed professional engineer and land surveyor. I have an office in Windsor, Connecticut, and I've been presenting to various commissions for the past 60 years. This, as has been stated, the site plan approval was granted February 23rd, 2015. It was a unified site plan for 2 properties, 568 and 570. The plan for 570 was to reconstruct the building, and you saw that happen, to tear up the existing parking lot and reconstruct it, add a lot of landscaping, remove impervious surface and replace that with lawn and more landscaping, and to install a very elaborate subsurface stormwater retention and absorption system. The stormwater retention and absorption system was installed much larger than required by town regulations because the abutter to the east was very concerned about the stormwater that ran off our site onto them. We received stormwater runoff from the very large parking lot and property to our north, towards the center from our 570 building. And that water continues today to flow onto our property, but we retained and in a very large subsurface structure consisting of plastic hoops, process or broken stone, covered with broken stone, all wrapped in filter fabric with a particle separator at the beginning to protect that unit from siltation. Turned out to be very appropriate that we did that because today there is a requirement to do just that under the 2024 Connecticut State Water Quality Manual. So we were addressing one problem and turned out it addressed more than one problem. In any case, the construction that did take place at that time, the whole thing was approved in two phases, excuse me. The first phase was to be the building 570, the reconstruction of the parking area, the aforementioned stormwater management system and landscaping. But what actually happened was they built the parking lot that was to serve 568, which is to the rear of 568. And they also prepped the site for the building. They removed pavement, concrete slabs, and other material that were that existed from the prior structure that existed at 568, getting it ready for the construction of the building. But the construction that happened was everything pretty much except the building. The approvals lapsed because after 5 years, as was stated, site plan approvals lapsed. I had long conversations, and a lot of emails back and forth with Brittany during the startup of this project because while the site plan lapsed, the site plan was actually approved as part of the special exceptions. But someone stuck a site plan label on the plan and signed it as expires on a certain date, and therefore expires on a certain date. The things that did not expire were the variances granted by the Zoning Board of Appeals and the special exceptions approved by the Zoning Commission. A lot of those special exceptions were alternate surface for a parking space. And for instance, normal parking spaces frequently go nose to nose, so they need to be at least 18 feet long. A parking space that is adjacent to a grassed area can have a bit of the overhang be grass. And so we made that space a little bit shorter and increased our landscaping, and the the Zoning Commission approved those special exceptions, and those did not have an expiration date, according to your regulations and according to state law. So those are still in effect. And that allows us to basically leave the pavement the way it was constructed because all those special exceptions related to the pavement and the parking, and that was all constructed back then. But the variances, as far as the side yard variance to the building adjacent, was not taken advantage of, but it does not expire. So the current proposal is the improvements previously installed on both sites will remain, with the exception of a very small area of pavement that was paved that didn't need to be paved. So we're removing it and changing it back to landscaping. The proposal for the restaurant use, which was what our original plan was in 2015, was a restaurant first floor and 2 apartments second. We've decided that 570 has become so popular that we can't have 2 restaurants on the site because there won't be any parking for people. People come to a restaurant and they can't find a place to park, and they tend to not go back, except maybe there. So the plans have been changed, the parking calculations have been changed so that we can have a retail space, professional office space, personal service like a hairdresser or some such space, or other uses that are approved upon approval of the site plan by this commission. So we're not having a restaurant space, and that's going to alleviate a lot of the concerns that the fire marshal had about congested parking when he might have to access the site. So the building details, we will meet all of the current occupancy, construction, access, and fire codes. There was a question about the proximity of the south wall of our building, the right-hand wall as you face the site, and the property line. That building is in a location next to the property line such that it has to have a rated wall. So that entire wall, even though the entire wall does not have to be rated, it's much easier to build a wall all the same than to build part of it as rated and part of it as not. So we're gonna put a fire rated wall all along our south edge. If you look at the plan, you'll note that the abutting building is much closer to the property line than we are. I'm not sure about the construction when their building was built, but our building will be built with a fire rated wall, both inside and outside. In addition to that, all the access drives are 20, excuse me, let me back up. The entire building, including the second floor apartments, the first floor retail space or whatever space it is, and the basement, which is used for dead storage, will be sprinklered. So the entire building, top to bottom, will be sprinklered and that wall will be rated. The fire marshal was initially concerned about this plan having been approved before he became fire marshal and that there would be appropriate access to the front parking lot and the back parking lot by the biggest fire operation vehicle you have, which is in operation at this time, which is a ladder truck. And so we could not find the specification for turning radiuses for his unit, so we used the next bigger unit. So if you buy a bigger fire truck, it'll still work. So anyway, the fire marshal said he's satisfied, all his concerns have been addressed, which include the addition to the plan of additional no parking fire lane signs and some pavement painting, which he has not advised us yet as to what he wants painted on the pavement as far as fire lane or crosshatching. So one of the conditions might be that we consult with the fire marshal before putting the final pavement markings on so that we do what we said we would do. As far as utilities, there's a fire hydrant 174 feet from the south of this site. New fire and domestic water services will be provided to the building from a hot meadow. There is a sewer manhole located immediately behind the building, which was installed at the time of the 570 construction. A new sewer line was put in there to serve not only 570, 568, but abutting properties and the general small neighborhood. The daily sewage load approved for this use was originally a food service, which has the highest sewage generation rate of any use. So if we put in and we paid that, if we put in a retail facility or a hairdresser or whatever, we'll be significantly under the currently approved sewage use on this property. As stated before, the approval will result in a reduction of hard surface, increased amount of landscaping, and the apartments, one of the apartments I think has been made a little bit bigger because when it was a restaurant, as the architect explained earlier to the design review board, we needed a exposed first story roof to have venting. And now we're not having a restaurant, so we don't need that. So we made the apartment a little more spacious and put balconies. So each apartment has a balcony, lots of interior storage, a nice open floor plan. I think it'd be a really good use as far as combined use. Regarding the storm management, water management system, I had touched on that. The methodology approved in 2015 changed with the 2024 adoption of the Connecticut Stormwater Quality Manual. We have to retain and absorb on site 100% of the runoff from a connected impervious surface, such as a rooftop or a parking area that goes to a drain, in a underground or some kind of surface. We have to retain it on the site. That means it cannot leave the site. That's so that 1.3 inches of rainfall takes the first flush of pollutants off the pavement. Not much comes from the roof, but some does. They're asphaltic. That goes into a system that has a particle separator. Most pollutants are attached to suspended solids. This removes 90% of the suspended solids, and then the water, relatively clean, goes into these hoops, hollow structures, broken stone, soaks into the soil, replenishes the groundwater with relatively clean water. The parking lot that exists behind the 168 building is a disconnected impervious surface, and it flows across grass and landscaping, and that allows for filtration and absorption. So we more than meet, and the rainfall that was used in 2015 is not the rainfall curves that we have to use today. We now have to use NOAA Atlas 14 version 3, I think it is, rainfall data, and that is site-specific right to that place. It's an amazing program. But in any case, it showed a little bit different rainfall than we used in 2015 analysis. So we reran that part of the report and demonstrated that we have no increase on the abutter. And then we ran the second part of the report with the 2024 Stormwater Quality Manual criteria, and we had equally good results. We are retaining more than we need to. We're reducing the flow from the site. And we are catching the pollutants before they enter the environment. The architect is here to tell you about the building, and but if you have any questions on the site plan, I'm happy to try and answer them.
Questions?
Thank you.
You have questions?
Thank you.
So the only access to the parking that you have to go behind the restaurant.
Right. When we came to the town before 2015 to discuss this layout plan, the concept was we don't like parking lots in the front yard. We want your parking in the backyard. We don't want to have two curb cuts on Hot Meadow Street. We want to cut down the curb cuts because every curb cut is a point of conflict, multiple points of conflict, because you've got so many turning maneuvers. And so we had a driveway on 568. We took it out. We'll now drive behind the building, and there will be adequate parking. By the way, we never asked for a variance in the number of parking spaces, and we never got one, and we're meeting the parking requirements 100%. Actually, more than that, because we're not doing a restaurant in the second building anymore. But in any case, we meet all the requirements of the plan. And Craig will tell you all about his beautiful building.
Good evening, I'm Craig Chassie, the architect. My firm is Architectural Studio 3C out of Harwinton, Connecticut.
I have the elevations, so if you just let me know which ones you want.
Okay, basically, the elevations you're looking at now are very similar to the original elevations presented back in 2015, with the exception of the rear section where you see that little covered pergola sticking off the back side of the building. There used to be a flat roof, beyond the top, the upper one. There used to be a flat roof that went back to that first mast that sticks out. What we've done is since there was no reason to have that section of flat roof, we've expanded the upper floor plan to incorporate that space and reclaim it. It made for a more aesthetically pleasing building and gave more space to the apartments, which was welcomed by the owners. We're basically taking the materials that we have on the adjacent building at 570 and kind of using the same finishes. We're putting brownstone on the base. The base of the building that you're looking at on that lower right picture there is what faces Hot Meadow Street. It's going to have one full floor of brownstone. In our meeting we just had with the design review board, they requested that door, instead of it being a solid door, have glass and maybe a transom above it to tie it in so the heights are the same as the windows, which we're gonna do, take that under advice and incorporate it. We did it as a solid door. We don't want it to be mistaken as an entrance, but we're gonna cover it by doing some signage on the sidewalk to stop people from walking to that door.
So that's a balcony and
Yeah, there's a balcony in that upper
that's
corner.
to one of the apartments.
That's one of the apartments. If you scroll down to the next sheet, you'll see another balcony there. And that's the other apartment coming out the back. Right now, we don't show any signage on the building. That's gonna be a separate permit when they decide what's actually going in the first floor. Right now, we don't know what the tenant's gonna be, but we've made accommodations that it could be, 2 tenants, it could be 1 tenant. Once they have a tenant, then they'll come back for signage and let you know what's happening with it. But as far as the materials go, the design review board gave us, we were gonna come in with exactly the same color scheme as we have on 570, and they kind of wanted us to look at it and say maybe use the same materials but differ the color on the sidings a little bit, and we're taking that into advice, and we're gonna look at what we possibly can do, but they didn't dictate what we have to do.
So the upper right has almost no windows because it's so
That's the
close,
side- that's
it's
the
so
side that
close to
faces
the
the
other
other building.
building.
Correct,
the
and
liquor
we
stores.
don't, that's a fire rated wall, so we didn't put any windows.
Well, but they'd be looking right at the other
They'd be
building.
looking directly into the other building, yes. But in a nutshell, that's really all I have to tell you. Unless there's any questions you have, I'm here.
Anyone have any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Further discussion on this application?
No, I think well, I've analyzed the floor plan, the architectural features and the site plan, and I think it all looks good. And as we've said, mixed use is a positive thing for downtown.
Okay, so can I,
Sorry, I just have a question for George. I just looking at it, it looks like the building lines up with the liquor store and Benny's, so there won't be a sight line issue, correct?
My understanding is the setback is
Yes, it looked exact.
is at
Okay.
in line with,
Perfect, yeah, I just wanted
in
to,
line with
that's the
the
only
liquor
thing I could
store.
see is coming around there.
Yeah.
That's
It's
my
just,
understanding, yes.
it looked like they lined up,
That's how I read the plans.
thank you.
okay. Someone care to make the motion? Doug? Go ahead.
Oh, I thought we were closing.
Well,
You have to read the motion.
do you wanna read
Yes, I
that?
can,
Yes.
I didn't realize which motion I was making.
Yes, you have to read
It's
the.
a little
can you
hard to
it?
read, but
I can read. Move, the zoning commission approves of application ZC 2527 of Shen and Gal
Gal.
Realty LLC, property owner Ed Lally and Associates Incorporated, applicant for a site plan approval to construct a multi-site structure with commercial on the first floor and 2 apartments on the second floor at 568 Hot Meadow Street, map G12, block 132, lot 37, Simsbury, zone B1. Upon a finding, the application substantially meets the requirements of section 11 of the zoning regulations and with the following conditions. The project shall be developed in substantial conformance with the site plan titled Phase 2, dark text on dark background.
Combined site plan.
Site plan prepared
Prepared.
for Shen and Gal
He's the
Realty
furthest.
LLC, prepared by Ed Lally and Associates, incorporated dated September 28th, 2025,
Revised.
revised January 6th, 2026.
I apologize for that.
Less
Oh, there you go, thank you.
Number
The
2.
project, the cross easements for 568 and 570 Hot Meadow Street, which were filed on the town's land record in 2015, must be maintained. The project shall be developed in substantial conformance with architectural drawings titled Schematic Exterior Elevations prepared by Architectural Studio 3C LLC dated December 20th, 2024, along with comments provided by the Design Review Board at the February 18th, 2026 meeting.
Thank you. Is there a second? Seconded by Kate. Any further discussion? No. Okay, all in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 6-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're all set.
Thanks, James.
Okay, so we move on to other commission business. George, anything to report this evening?
I was gonna say, you wanna do the before, I just have a couple items, you wanna do
Appointment first?
appointment, I would do that.
Okay, so we're gonna, this is the appointment of Thomas Mock as an alternate to the Design Review Board, I think. Many of you know Thomas, he's a small business owner in town, he owns Mock Painting off of, forget the name of that street.
Thomas Mock. Jim
Interiors,
Exactly,
yeah.
Jim Gallagher, and
In,
yeah, right near the Redstone Pub.
right,
And
Say he's more than qualified.
yeah, Thomas is a
Appreciate good people on design review.
yeah, he's an interior he's has his own business, he's an interior designer, very well qualified. So could someone make a motion to approve the appointment of Thomas Mock as an alternate to the Design Review Board?
I will make that motion.
Shannon, is there a second?
second,
Seconded by Dagny, any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
aye,
Any opposed? It's 6-0, and Mr. Mock is appointed to the Design Review Board.
great.
George?
Yeah, just a couple of things before our final item, just to bring you up to speed on, I know you like to be aware of coming applications, so the McLean expansion was approved by the Inland Wetland Commission 2 weeks ago. And they met last night to talk about Conservation Commission advisory recommendations that would come forward to you when that application comes in. But we do expect that application in within the next month or so. So that will
So we'll get a copy of the final site plan?
they will submit us, so they got the inland wetland permit and they will have to file a site plan application for zoning approval.
Yep.
And that will be in next month. So a lot of interest in that. As Francisco and I said, I just want to put it in writing for you. The zoning community forum input session, March 30th,
Yes.
2026, put it in your calendar. It's not a requirement for the zoning,
That's
It's gonna-
6 p.m.
6 to 9, I
Okay.
think 6 to, maybe, we haven't done that, but 6 to 7 might be open house and then presentation, and so we haven't put all that together yet.
Location?
It's gonna be right here. And we will do full media on this, we'll do flyers, we'll do all the press release, like you said, we'll do all that in the next couple 2 weeks.
Thank you.
The Community Sign Forum, we held just a couple of weeks ago. We had a number of folks who sat in on that. Tony, Shannon,
Dagny was there, Doug was there.
Doug? So maybe instead of me summarizing it, why don't you summarize it? I thought it was great. I thought we got a lot of super feedback.
We had
Super feedback.
There was a really good turnout, which was encouraging. I also think that the people participating felt heard. I think the questions that were posed to them were relevant and on the topics that they wanted
You
to
said
discuss.
heard, not
Heard.
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 Not hurt.
Not hurt.
I drafted those questions.
No, they
Heard.
Took turn.
Oh my.
Anyhow,
Anyway, so I think it was very positive, and I think we got a lot of different perspectives from different businesses represented, but all pretty much looking for support from the town.
it's a good summary.
For not having attended, I talked to a number of people and that's exactly what they said. And they were very receptive and very happy. The public was very happy that we had that
Good.
Forum. So
It was good.
Yeah,
Excellent. I really
well,
thought it was good.
One comment that I noticed, the table where I sat, they had been called out for having just this tiny little decoration on their, portico or whatever that was considered, there's a limit to what Four Seasons or something, you can have Christmas decorations and I forget what the other occasions are. And it seemed like a trivial thing to be considered a violation of rules. So we need to look into whether this is a subjective thing or,
Yes,
Well, I think there was definitely some frustration
Yeah.
voiced by
yes.
by business owners, and I was encouraged to see that we're gonna be getting into that on our new regulations. We sure are.
Yeah, so that was good.
It was good.
That's all I have.
That's all you have?
Happy to take any questions about anything.
Okay,
Are you talking about the last thing or no?
so we're gonna.
So we're gonna do the next, but just for the public record, the Silverman lawsuit against the zoning commission, the judge affirmed the zoning commission's decision. And that decision is available if you want it. I don't know if I sent it to everybody.
You did.
Okay, so.
And we don't know what their next step is gonna be.
I have nothing to report beyond that.
There's nothing to report beyond that. Okay, so with that, we're going to move into executive session.
Can I ask for just a really quick break so I can go?
Yeah, sure. So we'll move into executive
So
session.
get a motion to go into executive
Bathroom
session
break.
and invite the town planner.
Okay, so we're gonna, hold on a second, Jackie, we're gonna make a motion and then you can, so get a motion to go into executive session and invite the planner, can someone make that motion?
Can you go ahead and just read the reasons so we have it on the
Okay.
record? You really should state the reasons.
Okay, so
Read pursuant to.
pursuant to the general statute section 1-206B, discussion of pending litigation and or claims. I make that motion, is there a second?
Second, Shannon can have it.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Six. Okay, passes unanimously. Okay, we'll
Right
take a
back.
brief break.
For over 40 years, SCM has been the voice of our town.
Bringing us together through local programming,
Education and live broadcasts.
SEM isn't just about television.
It's about empowering our community.
Ensuring our voices are heard during government meetings.
And celebrating milestones.
like our high school graduations.
But today, SEM faces a challenge.
Our funding structure is based on television subscriptions.
And it's no secret, people have been cutting the cord.
With a shift to internet-only subscriptions,
SCM receives less revenue.
Even though all our programming is freely available online.
We need your support.
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 Your donation can make a difference.
It will ensure that SCM remains open.
Continues to educate our youth.
And keeps our community informed.
Thanks to SCM, I've been honing my creative skills, helping me work towards my college degree.
SCM is crucial for keeping our community connected.
SCM isn't just here to broadcast local events. They're actually preserving Simsbury's history.
Join us.
Join us in preserving Simsbury's voice.
Simsbury's voice.
Together we can ensure that SCM continues to thrive.
For generations to come.
Visit our website
Or scan the QR code on your screen to make your donation.
Every contribution
Counts.
Thank you for supporting Simsbury Community Media.
where your town
Your schools and
And your government
come together.